The following Torah is based entirely on a Torah I heard from Rav Bernstein. On Tisha B'Av, we read Eicha, Megillat Eicha, it's one of the 5 Megillas. And the very first pasuk in it is Eicha, or at least the first half of the pasuk, is Eicha Yashva Vadad Ha'ir Rabati Am Haita Ka'almana. Right? How did it sit alone? The city that was full of people was like a widow. Now it's desolate. Now the Midrash in Breshit is trying to find out what's the source of this word Eicha? Where does that come from? And it answers from the word Ayeka. Yeah? In the 3rd parak of Breshit, after Adam has sinned and eaten from the forbidden fruit, God comes to Adam and says, Ayeka, where are you? That's the link. Ayeka is like Eicha. But really, these two words are not the same. Though it's true they're spelled the same in that they have the 4 same letters in the same order, they aren't the same. Eicha means how, from Ech, and Ayeka means where are you? From Aye, where are you? Ayeka, where are you? So how are these two words the same? And why is one the root of the other? That's the question we're looking to answer. And we see the answer, or at least the beginning of an answer, in looking back to the history of Tisha B'Av. What was the first Tisha B'Av? The answer is that, and actually we saw it several weeks ago, it was in Parshat Shlach. It was in the night the Meraglim came back from scouting out the land of Israel, and they gave their terrible report about Eretz Yisrael. The Jewish people started to cry, and there's a statement that says, because of this b'chiyah shel chinam, because of this empty crying, this crying for no reason, I'm going to make this a night of crying for you for the rest of history. And this actually affected the way Eicha was written. After all, Eicha is written as an aleph bet. First starts with the pasuk starts with aleph, and the next pasuk starts with a bet, and gimel, and daled, and so on. Except for one exception. It's all written in order, except that ayin, which normally comes before pei, comes after pei, and that the pasuk that begins with pei comes before the pasuk that begins with ayin. And both the Midrash Eicha Rabbah and Breshit Rabbah comment, why is this so? That's because the Meraglim put their pei before their ayin. They spoke about things that they didn't actually see. Now there's a question. Really? The spies didn't talk about things that they saw? You could certainly say that they spun things in a negative light. They saw things and decided to interpret in a terrible way, but they reported what they saw, seemingly. And moreover, Eicha, while it's true that it goes in the alphabet, and it's true that it changes the order from ayin to pei and then ayin, that's not true in the first parak. In the first parak of Eicha, the alphabet goes according to its exact order perfectly. It goes from aleph to taf with no exceptions. Only once you get to the second parak are the pei and ayin switched. Why is that? Because normally if we're thinking, well, Eicha wants to teach us, the Megillah wants to teach us a lesson, then it'll teach us this lesson at its first opportunity, which would be in the first parak. Why delay and wait for the second parak? Those are the questions. I need to take a step back, because in the Gemara in Yoma, again, this is all based on Rav Bernstein's insights. In the Gemara in Yoma, we learned that the reason for the second Churban was because of Sinat Chinam. And we're actually meant to fix this, the Sinat Chinam every year, especially Tisha B'Av. We focus on the sin, we try to correct it. But how do we correct that? Sinat Chinam, by the way, is baseless hatred. It's hatred based apparently on no reason. It's baseless. Now the question is, if something is baseless and has no reason, then how are we meant to correct it? There's no reason for it. There's nothing for us to correct. It's just empty. So the depth of this statement, when we say it's Sinat Chinam, Chazal is trying to teach us, that's not hatred for no reason. So it's hatred for no real reason. What does that mean? Says Rav Bernstein, if someone took something that belonged to you, you'd be resentful. If someone took something that did not belong to you, you wouldn't care. Again, someone takes something that's yours, but you get it. You're upset. You're angry. You're frustrated with this person. But if someone took something that It's not yours, and I mean, you forget about it a couple seconds later. You don't even realize it's not yours, or that this was taken to begin with. What if someone takes something that doesn't belong to you, but you think it belongs to you? Then you'd feel resentment. But that's false. There's no real reason for it. It isn't yours. So we see that Sinat Chinam really stems from an overinflated sense of ego and self, because you think that everything is due to you, all credit belongs to you. So when someone comes and diverts some of that attention away from you, or takes something that you think belongs to you, then he's going to inspire your wrath. After all, people who hate based on baseless hatred, who have Sinat Chinam, they certainly think they have a good reason. And this fuels that reason for their hate. He took something that belongs to me. No, it doesn't. But they think it does. Now, a person like this, he lives with a map with him at the center. Now, that map doesn't belong to anyone else, because no one else sees the map with him at the center of it. However, to him, it's very real. And we have to understand that map doesn't exist. So thank you for letting me look at my notes. So that map doesn't exist in reality, but it does in his reality. Now, such a person who suffers from Sinat Chinam is already in exile, because he lives in a world with nobody else in it, right? And you can say the same thing, where if he lives in a whole town filled with people who live with them in the center of it, then they're each living in their own world. Really, they're all in exile. Now, that's the kind of person who, when you hear something, or hear someone laughing, or hears anything, he thinks it's about me. They're talking about me. They're laughing about me. Now, why? Because he lives in the world with him at the center. Anything that's being done is obviously about him or concerns him, even though it doesn't. So how does this relate to the Meraglim? So how does this relate to the sin that the Meraglim spoke about things that they didn't actually see? That was because when they went into Eretz Yisrael, they had their own reasons why they didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. So when they saw certain things, like, for example, the famous example, where they walk into a town and they see that the whole town is actually attending a funeral, and every town they went to had a funeral with the whole town attending. So they reasoned that if there's a funeral in every town we go to, it's Eretz Ochel Yoshvet, it's a land that kills its people. And the real reason why this happened is because God was trying to give them a shroud, a cover, to go through unnoticed, so they could scout out the land without getting into trouble. But to them, based on their own preconceived notions of what they wanted to see, no, it meant that the land kills. Now, there are a couple of questions that Rav Bernstein asks on this. The first is, if this is a land that kills, and it kills more people than it gives birth to, then how are these towns full of people? There shouldn't be any people. It should be more or less a desolate town. But you're saying that you're seeing these funerals that are attended by the entire town. There are a lot of people. How's that possible if it's an Eretz Ochel Yoshvet? And two, this isn't such a nice comment, but it needs to be asked, is if there's so many funerals going on, especially on a daily basis, then why was the whole town attending this funeral? If there are 20 funerals to go to every day, you're not going to get the whole town to come to it. Unfortunately, people, when things happen a little too often, they're desensitized to it. If you're desensitized, it's not going to arouse too much public sympathy. These are the two questions against the Meraglim and their insights on what was happening in Eretz Yisrael. And again, that's why Eicha follows the order it does. The first parak, the ayin comes before the pei as it should. Why? Because the Meraglim, they saw what they saw and they reported what they saw. But if they looked deeper, if they really thought about the things they were seeing, they would have known that this was really just an opportunity for them to go through undetected. That's not how they saw things, because their pei came before the ayin. That's why, as of Perek Beit and Gimel and Daled, in the next three chapters, the pei comes before the ayin, because they spoke about things that they didn't really see. If they just thought about it a little more deeply, they would have known why that was. Now, Shlomo Kluger, just such a nice little insight, was there's a statement that says, for every day that the spies scattered the land, you're going to get a year wandering the desert. Yom Lashana. Now he asks the question, why Yom Lashana? After all, their scattered land wasn't the problem. Their sin was Lashon Hara. That was only committed the night they came back from their tour. They came back from the tour. They spoke Lashon Hara. That was the sin. Why Yom Lashana? So we can understand much more deeply and understandably why they were punished for every day they were there. Because really, the fact that they spoke Lashon Hara, that was just a symptom of the problem. The real root of the problem was the fact that they were seeing it without really seeing the reality of Eretz Canaan. So, in a way, we could say that it's deeply tragic, but the Meraglim who were sent into Eretz Yisrael, or rather into Eretz Canaan, never really saw Eretz Canaan. They never really entered, because they didn't see what was there. They saw through their own vision. That's not what was actually going on. That wasn't Eretz Canaan. They said that it's Eretz V'chelet Yoshveh. It's a land that kills. Our land doesn't kill. They weren't speaking about the land. So back to Echa, the first pasuk says, Echa Yashva Vadad, Ha'ir Rabati Am Haitaka Almana. How did it sit alone? The city that was full of people was like widow. It was like a widow. So now, before there were many people, and now there are no people. Now we can understand this pasuk as that. It's a chronological tale. Before, there were many people living in Jerusalem. Now, there are no people living in Jerusalem, because there's a chorban. That's one way to understand it. But there's another way, given by the Bin al-Itim, as cited by Rav Bernstein, that really, this is going on at the same time. The city was full of people, but there's a Sinat Chinam people. They're all living in a world of their own. So even though there are so many people around them, they each lived in their own world, and therefore they were alone. The city was desolate. There was nobody there because they weren't actually living in the city. So now we can understand the root, the depth of the question of Ayeka. Why did God ask Adam, Ayeka, where are you? Did God not know where he was? Of course he did. What was he asking? Saying, Adam, the place I left you was in Gan Eden, was a place where all the trees are good for you, except for this one. And somehow, you turned this Gan Eden into a place where none of the trees were of any use to you, except for this one. That's not where I left you. Ayeka, where are you? So Rav Bernstein ends with an important note that, so what are we to do? How are we to fix the future? How are we supposed to fix this? So you can get distracted by, many of the big world problems and feel powerless to affect any change. But a more appropriate response would be to, after all, the whole problem of sin and chinam really began with the individual. So you could see that if we're able to put things in its proper perspective, or that we live with a proper vision of what the world is and our place in it, then that would be the beginning of bringing the Gula B'Mehera B'Yameinu. Thank you so much.